yes, we are in another episode of me just stripping paint, and I realize that that may be boring content for some people, but I have kind of committed to be showing all of the work, and some of the work is boring and sort of tedious. In fact, I would say that probably about 80% of the work that you're doing on a restoration can seem a little bit boring. It's not all welding and cutting and building engines and assembly and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that you have to do is just going to be kind of boring and tedious work. So while, yes, this is not the most exciting content I have, but it is part of the process, and we are going to show it. And it'll be valuable to someone. I know I say that a lot, but I never know what is going to be valuable to some people. I've shown some things that I thought nobody would care about, and a lot of people were really happy to see it. So we're just erring on the side of caution and going to show everything. Now, a couple things I don't think I've mentioned before is that you will see me stripping, like in the video, you'll see me stripping the rear apron. Now, that was a new aftermarket panel, and they come painted. And it really is not a paint that you want to put more paint on. It really is just sort of a cheap protective sort of coating for being in storage and transportation and stuff like that. It is not a very good quality paint, and I would not say that that is what you want as your sort of main substrate to build on. So all of that has to come off. I know there are some panels that occasionally will come maybe in an E-coating, but these are definitely not an E-coat. I know what an E-coat is. This was not an E-coat, and this was cheap primer. So I'll always say that the very best practice for a new panel is just to strip it to bare metal. And there was more than one occasion where I was stripping that sort of protective paint where I did find rust under it. So you never know what you're going to find. Err on the side of caution. This is a big project. You're putting lots of money into it. Just do the whole thing. You'll also see that I was, as I was stripping paint on the fender, I was using a heat gun and like scraping it off. Paint shouldn't do that. So what you're seeing there is probably, I wouldn't say it was well, maybe a bad paint job, but I think what happened was that they didn't prep when they did their base coat. They didn't prep it very good. And they went over the primer and they hadn't prepped it. So what that usually means is that they're not getting either good chemical adhesion or they're not getting good mechanical adhesion. And those are two things that you want to look out for when you're doing your paint job, because then you're just going to set yourself up for a longer lasting paint job and things like that. So with chemical adhesion, if you're doing primer then base coat, you can do primer and then base coat in a certain window and you'll get a really good chemical adhesion, meaning everything is going to stick together really good. If you can't do it in that window, like if you have to primer it and then several days later or outside of the window where they say it's good to do, it's good to get your paint on there, you're going to have to scuff it. That's just the reality. Once it's cured, you're not going to get the same adhesion as that chemical adhesion. So then you're going to go for mechanical adhesion, which is you're going to go and scuff it with some sandpaper. And now you'll have to look at the TDS to see what grit sandpaper it is. But you're going to want to scuff it, and scuffing it and getting a little bit of scratch marks in it. Now we're not talking like 80 grit. We're talking pretty fine. That will allow your paint now to adhere mechanically, and you're just going to get a better, longer lasting paint job. So you'll see on the fenders the result. That was the result of not a very good sort of well thought out paint job. It looked nice, but it would have failed, over time. It shouldn't peel off like that. Let's just say that. You'll also see it's not really stripping paint, but I did have to get rid of that coating that's on the inside of those fenders. I believe coming from factory, they had some sort of protective coating on there, and it is a huge pain to get off. I found that the best thing that worked for me actually was I actually used kerosene. I used kerosene and I sprayed it down with kerosene, and then I used a wire brush and sort of agitated it that way, and then it almost just wiped right off. Using sandpaper does not work because it'll just gum it up immediately. You'll just have to constantly be changing your sandpaper disc. And a wire wheel doesn't really work very good either. So I really found that you could probably use a different kind of solvent, but I use kerosene because it's cheap and I had it on hand. And so I would spray it, kind of brush it a little bit, and then it mostly was wiping off. So there's a little tip for you there. that might save you some time. But if you're going to want to paint the insides of your fenders, you got to get all that off. The other thing I do talk about in this video is paint strippers. Now, back when I was doing this, I didn't really have an alternative that I was happy with, so I did just all mechanical paint stripping. But now I have in my possession, I've used it in my shop. I have a paint stripper that I'm actually relatively happy with, and it is by Clean Strip, and it's the Aircraft Ultra. I believe that's what it's called. I'll see if maybe I can get a little picture and put it up here. But I've been relatively happy with that. I was at SEMA this last year, and they sent me a case. They said, give this a try. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. And so they gave me some tips and tricks with how to use it, and I was actually really happy with how it worked. So at the time when I was like stripping all this paint, there really wasn't a great alternative. So I just did, like I said, I just sanded it off, wire wheel, that sort of thing. But now you may be able to find something on the market that is a little bit better and a little bit more effective. So maybe give that a try. This little Aircraft Ultra, you might be surprised and happy with how it works for you. And other than that, it's just strip and paint and just kind of moving forward in the process. You'll have days like this where it's just going to be like not very exciting, not a lot happening, but essential to get done so that you can move forward. So enjoy the video and come back next week, and maybe I'll have something more exciting for you. All right, guys, we have got to talk about paint strippers just for a minute. I'm getting a lot of comments about why don't I use a paint stripper? I would love to use a paint stripper on these pieces. Nothing would make me happier than to throw in a paint stripper, wire wheel, wire brush, and just take it all away. But here's the problem. I'm in Canada. United States will be the same. Paint strippers have a really important active ingredient that is really effective in removing paint, and it's called methylene chloride. And I read a lot about this because a few years ago I got really frustrated with the paint strippers available now in Canada that are the non-methylene chloride kind. This chemical has been banned in Canada and the United States since about 2018. So that's why I'm not using paint strippers, because they're very ineffective. If you want to use the non-methylene chloride paint strippers, you can do that. But all of a sudden, you put the paint stripper on and they say, well, you got to cover it with plastic wrap. You have to do multiple applications. Are you following me here? You put the paint stripper down, leave it for its time, or cover it up. You come and scrape it off and it does the base layer. Then you have to do another layer to do the primer layer. So you can see that it's starting to add up in my time. More work. I can take this and this and this and just get to work and strip paint. The non-methylene chloride paint strippers is causing me more work, so that's why I'm not using it. I hope that answers your question. an update here, guys. It's been a little while. So if you've been following around, you know that I've just been basically stripping paint right now. So fenders done, rear apron done, and we've got the rear deck lid done. Yeah. So basically what I've been doing is just prepping as I go, because I know that I'll get bogged down with the little details. If I leave all the fenders to the end, it just gets like a little much. So a few more little things to do down there. I've just been working my way forwards. I'll do the roof and everything and this nonsense back here a little later, but I'm moving my way forward. As far as metalwork, guys, we're just about done here. The front firewall is going to need some work to be done. And I don't know, guys, I haven't done anything here yet because I need to strip some stuff away there and see if maybe I can just fabricate the pieces that I need. It's not very much. I'll show you down here. It's like we're all cracked down here and kind of that area there. So we got the front firewall we need to address. And then I'm going to talk about one of the last big things that we need to do. I'm going to do it in another video. But basically, we're getting there, guys. Primer by sometime this summer. I'm not going to put a date on it, but sometime this summer, we're going to get everything in primer.